I just wanted to see if everyone started doing it. All right. I'll see. Look, it clicked on its own. All right. Go back one. Go back one. What's up? Recording? Yes, I hit record. Imagine I didn't hit record. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Unity and Game Dev Basics workshop. Okay, using my mouse to scroll through this is not working. All right, so sorry, there's a lot of things to cover in Unity, but the reason why I have them all colored out here is to show what we can realistically cover in one meeting and what will probably have to be for another workshop or your own lookup. Cool. But here is the table of contents. These slides will be available so that if ever you need to go back and look at it, they are here. And we are, just a big disclaimer, we are updating this over time. I will be updating this over time too. Just so that we have everything covered on Unity. And everything on the top right here, you guys see these colors? That generally just shows like how much I'm going to be able to cover it in this workshop. Yeah, that's it. Moving on. So what is this? This is an intro to making games and specifically using the Unity editor to do it. Just like Matt's workshop, we're going to talk about some basic stuff regarding making games, so like objects, entities, scenes, and all that. Some of the stuff that was like similar or carries over to Godot. It also carries over to Unreal and other game engines as well. And then we'll take a quick run at making a game, and like I said before, it will be updated periodically. So the workshop agenda right now is we're going to cover getting the files, downloading the asset project, and then making your first Unity game, or what it looks like to make your first game. And then we'll cover scenes, game objects, how to build and run a game, and then a question I have, which is, could we cover everything? Can I get a quick show of hands who has worked in Unity? All right, it's everyone. So this will all be familiar.
Except for which section is it? Because it could be computer graphics and UI.
Okay, we're just covering everything to start off here. So moving on. So for this version of, or for the version that we're having the assets project at, we're using specifically Unity 6.0 6000.054F. If you want to download the files and play around with it, that is the version I recommend you use. You could use other versions, but there may be issues importing, so it comes with a risk there. And the files for the actual project are on GitHub. Those of you who aren't familiar with GitHub, you can just go to this slide and download the zip there. And by proof of concept, this is for people that don't know how to use GitHub. Real quick, does everyone here know how to use GitHub? All right, cool. Another day we may cover that. But for now, I'll give you guys a minute to scan that QR code. Actually, I even put the link down in the Discord in a second. Where is it? There it is. So as a proof of concept, I did download it, and you're gonna watch me like live action import it. All right, so I'm gonna extract the files from the GitHub after hitting that download, and we'll bring up the Unity Hub. Does everyone have the Unity Hub? Cool. And then over here, you just add a project from disk, and if you go to the folder, two folders. If you go to the folder that contains like the assets packages and everything from here, then that will be the project. And then you'll see, boom, I have the project. So quick little tutorial on how to load it in without installing GitHub and doing the pull and everything. I'm gonna put this away now. All right, before I move on, everyone follow? Questions? What's up? You want to put that down in Discord for me?
The link to this?
Yeah.
I got you.
Thank you. He's gonna do it right now. Put it in semester resources. All right. Moving on. So everything I'm going to talk about moving forward, there are some interchangeable terms. So if I mention something like level or room, I don't think I'm going to say chapter or screen, but to get the idea of it, those all mean the same thing in this aspect. Are you okay? Yeah. It all means the same thing in this aspect of scene. And same with game object. If I'm talking about an entity, a game object, or an object, or an item, or anything, basically the people and the props of the game, I'll be referring to a game object. Your first Unity game will look something like this, where we have this big container that is your exe, the thing that you double click, and then in there you'll have a number of scenes that you want to work with. And every scene is going to contain everything you ever want to work with, aka the player, the world, and anything else. And how a project would look from start to finish would be to make the project, which is the whole exe, not the whole exe. Um, you make the project yourself in Unity, and then you make the scenes for it, and then you make the players, the props, and everything. And then once you're done with that, you build it, and you have a game. Cool. So first thing we're going to cover is the editor. I'm just going to cover it. Sorry, maybe close the door. Yeah, tell them, please. All right. So the editor in Unity is sorry. You probably noticed that my screen is broken, so I'm trying to guess what I wrote up here. But the editor has everything that you see, but not everything you need yet. The reason why I say that is because Unity has a lot of tools. It's not only made for making games, it's also made for animations and show and film productions. It's used for, thank you, it's used for a lot of things. So that's why I say you don't need everything yet. The only things I'd say you really need to focus on in the scope of making a game is obviously the scene and the game viewports, where it's the designer and player's POV. Project assets, which is everything that you have for the project, the hierarchy, where everything that's in the current level is being placed, and the inspector, which lets you look at every object individual in an individual perspective. Cool. That was hard to say. My bad. All right. So first thing we're going to cover is the editor. I think I already said that, but this is what it looks like. The editor over here is in yellow. We have the hierarchy in green. It's this vertical looking bar. And most of these are going to be vertical, except for this one. And I do have a different layout than what Unity has by default. This is just how I prefer it. But that's the cool thing about Unity is you can shift and move things around to your comfort in terms of visibility. I know some people have their Unity set up for like art, where they have all the project files on the side, and I'm not really looking at the inspector, maybe the inspector for like the sprites and stuff. But I know when I'm at least when I'm working on like any 2D stuff, the tile palette is usually bigger than what it is right now. I just made it smaller for the sake of this screenshot. And going more into detail for the scene in the game, you have a bunch of transform tools here on the top left, and a bunch of tools for the different views. So I didn't really cover it here, but these are the rendering modes. So if you're working with 3D, you have different rendering modes here. And the switch to 2D and 3D perspective is right here. And gizmos, I'm pointing this one out because there are a lot of symbols that Unity uses for all their tools. So like camera logos, light logos, and stuff. And sometimes they do get in the way. Or in some other cases, you're trying to do like raise or collision boxes and you can't see them in the moment. All tools like that, they belong in the gizmos dropdown. Yeah, moving on. Oh yeah, this is just to show off that it's 3D. So yeah, you can show off or you can make a 2D game in 3D. So Unity is built entirely on 3D, and the way that 2D games works is just a fixed like angle for the camera. Um, but you could get pretty creative with that in the sense that, hold on, I think I have a link for this. You can, oh, maybe it's the next one. You can do some pretty unique stuff with this, and I lost the link for it. Maybe I can find it here. No, I can't. I'll show you guys after. But you can use the tile maps or the 2D tile maps in our project as its own object that you can rotate around and do a sort of like a 2.5D perspective. All right, next thing that we're covering is the hierarchy. So over here on the top right, I have a quick example to show off everything you can do in the hierarchy. In your scene, you can have an object, you can have a game object, and then a game object can have a child object, so whatever you do to the parent object, like moving around and stuff, it would affect the child object, but in some certain cases. So if you're moving just the parent, the child will go with it. But if you have some code that specifically affects one object that it's attached to, not all the time, it won't affect the child at all times. And then under that, we have prefabs. They look like this little blue box. And then under that, everything that's in a prefab will apply to it. I don't know if that's the correct way to say it. Let me reword that. A prefab is an object that has a lot of other objects into it as a group, and that one can be used in different places outside of the scene. So you can make something that you make plenty of times, and just place it anywhere to keep using it. And over here you can see on the left there is a lot of options when you're making anything, any game object or anything in your game. All right, let's move on. So I have to look up here because the screen's broken. So quick look at the transform tools. You do have panning, but you can also use your middle mouse to move that around. You do have move, rotate, resize or scale, and transform. But I'll show you in a second that you could really just use this one. And anything you need to do with like moving or scaling around stuff in the game will happen with these tools here on the top left of your editor or your viewport. Here's my cool graphic to show off that all three of them do the same thing, or all three of them add up to the same thing over here. So you have the scale, you have the rotate, you have the move, and they all happen under this single transform tool. So it's my personal preference if you want to use any one of them individually. Next is the inspector. Everything that you need to modify an object is over here. So whenever you click on, hold on, I think I have it open. So whenever you click on anything, hi Karen. Whenever you click on anything on Unity, it will open up the inspector over here. And you can click and configure and do anything you want to each of these objects here. Put that away. And I mentioned here, because this is pretty introductory, but I mentioned here there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the inspector, because in some sense later on when you're coding, you can code it to specifically make these numbers or fields that you want to have just so that's like easily adjustable whenever you're working on designing your game. It is a lot to talk about right now. All right. The main point is that you can configure your objects using the inspector. And then for your projects and assets, or your projects tab, or your project tab, individual, that's where you keep everything in the game or in your project. So all the assets, all the prefabs, all the scenes, all the scripts, everything goes in there, and that's pretty much your file explorer for working in Unity. Unity doesn't really like it when you work on the files or change anything in the files outside of the editor, because it does use like metadata to make sure that whatever you're working on stays in place. And when you do changes, it doesn't like. It'll be like it'll throw something and be like, hey, this isn't here. I'm gonna make it here now. All right. Oh, and you can name your folders whatever you like for whatever type of organization or grouping you're doing. And I added a link over here to show that there are specific. Oh, nice. There are specific folder names that you probably should only use for whatever it's like intended for. So, for example, if you name a folder assets, there's a specific functionality to it. If you name it editor, if you name it gizmos, there are specific Unity named folders. But other than that, if it's not one of those, then you can name it whatever you want. Next, just because I'm covering this just because it involves the asset project that we have. This is the tile palette. Just running over it really quick. It's just it's a little menu where you can put in your sprite sheets, and then you can click and select, and then just draw stuff. So, for example, I'll pull it out later. Um, but this does let you select each of your sprites and then use them as like a sort of like paint tool. Um, oh, I think this is where, yeah, this is it. So remember when I said the 2D stuff doesn't have to be 2D. We're gonna skim through this because this is the game that wasn't working last time.
So we start with the window
There,
diagram and
that's what it was supposed to look like. It is a 2.5D type of perspective game. The floor here is just a tile map. I just rotated it, and then I rotated the camera to look at it at an angle so that it looks sort of quote unquote 3D. I've had friends who also worked on 2.5D games where they used the another tile map vertically to make sort of like a, how do you, I don't know what the word is. It's like a stage type of thing. Parallax? Is it parallax? Where it's just like the floor comes out and then it drops off and you can see. Yeah, you can do something like that. Um, Tile maps are also objects or game objects, which means you can just move and position them around. I have done this thing where I've done like I guess the word parallax effect, where I had like some textures in front in a front grid and some textures in a back grid, so that when you moved along the side, it would look like it would like simulate distance. I know you've helped me with that, Cherry. Thank you. So yeah, tile maps and tile palettes, pretty cool, especially if you're working on 2D games. Oh, I clicked it again. All right. Real quick on scenes, without talking too much about like coding anything, although we can talk about coding stuff after I go over this. Um, Scenes are just your individual levels, and you could put them in a sequence that controls the flow of your game. So what I have in this diagram down here is if you have main menu and then a level 1 and a level 2, it can diverge, it can fork out and then merge back in any way, so long as you can program it that way. And then it can reach an end scene, and then you tell it to go back to the beginning. You can use scenes as like I mentioned it earlier, as like levels, chapters, anything like that, just to like sort of organize and sort of build up your story of whatever game you're making. And then this is an example from a game jam I did a year ago. These are the 6 levels that we did, and the 7th level that we planned. And this whole graph just kind of shows off like how we sort of planned our scenes for when the game's playing. So we'll go through main menu. This transition screen is just to like give a little cute loading screen whenever we loaded another scene. That's why there's so many arrows. It's like main menu, transition, 1.1, transition, 1.2, transition, 1.3, and so on and so forth. If you make diverging paths in some sort of story game, it gets pretty complicated from there. So good luck. All right, and now the big thing about Unity is their game objects, and I see you pointing at your cluttered hierarchy. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, game objects are everything, not only in just Unity, but in every game engine you'd ever work with, as far as I know. I know it exists for Godot, and I know it exists for Unreal. It's just anything in the game, and you have to define what it is whenever you make it. So it could, like it says here, it could cover entities, or it could be entities, objects, managers, prefabs. It can even be empty and be used to sort of organize all of your other objects. I don't know if that's the case in the other two, because I know Godot uses scenes. Yeah, but at least in Unity's case, you can use an empty game object as a sort of folder to hold your other objects. So over on the right, you can see that all of the tile mapping grids are under this name grid, or under this folder grid. So the decor, the foreground, and the background under grid. If I move grid anywhere, all 3 of these move with it. And then same for the player. There's a 2D player camera object or prefab right here, and it contains the player and main camera. Those two will always be under this, and whatever functions happen between the two will stay under this group. And then everything below is clutter. It's like unorganized, no folder or anything. He just raw dogged it. So folders could fix that issue to at least make it more organized. I don't remember what this one was about. Yeah, I think this slide is just making objects. Unity does come with a good amount of like starting objects to work around with to sort of get to what you want. For example, if you made a cube, it would give you the game object, which has a component of a 3D mesh, and then you can add whatever you want onto that. This just sort of helps you start with an object that you want to work with. And then to get to this menu is either this plus button on the hierarchy or right click on the viewport. And so many terms. Next thing we're covering is the components. So the components of sorry. The components of an object, like I said before, this is where you mess around with all the configuration of an object. Whatever you add to it sort of defines what you're doing with your object. For example, if you want to give a cube physics, you give it the rigid body 2D, and that'll just make it plop to the ground because now you've given it physics. And a lot of these are provided by Unity, but I'll explain in the next slide. But just to show it off, the player that we have in our assets project is made of all of these components here, where we have, well, the transform is by default with every object. It just saves the location of where it is. But the rigid body provides physics. The controller script provides all the controls that affect the player. Sprite renderer shows the sprite. Capsule collider, I think you get it at this point, like I said at the bottom here. In some projects that we work on, there are a ton of components to one object. Is it necessary? It only depends on what you're making. And just to go over where it's basic is for game objects, like I said before, Unity just gives a bunch of components that you can put on by default. But everything afterwards, where the real game making happens, is when you're making your scripts for all this stuff and you're setting up your scripts to be somewhere back here. You're making scripts and you're attaching scripts to objects that give you, where is it, menus like this, where you can adjust the movement speed or the sound effects, or if you can limit jumps or what kind of layers it's touching on. At some point when you code it in, you can make all of your components for your objects highly configurable to what you need, or to what your designer needs, or to what your artist needs, or to whoever needs what. Yeah, like I said here, it's obvious. It's where the cool stuff happens. It takes a lot of time. That's where a lot of the development happens. And lastly, build and run. When you're done with making your game, I probably should have put this picture first, but to get to it, at the top left of your screen, under File, there is a section called Build, Profiles, and Build and Run. This is where you turn your game into that exe, just like I showed in the first picture, that big container where it says this is your .exe that contains all your scenes. This is the menu to do it all. It lets you change a bunch of options about your game. So for example, if someone were to see the properties about your game's program or your games.exe, they can see what company made it, what it's called. Where is it? I don't think I have it here. All right, I don't have it here, but I named the one that Jomar made the funny name. You can also change the icon, the default settings that it would play at. Everything you want to handle when running the game from the start is handled here, as well as all the scenes, or including all the scenes to your game. So as you can see here on the right, each scene that's been added into the scene list is assigned a number. you can sort of use this for an earlier slide. I lost it. There it is. You can use the numbers of each scene to sort of map out this this sort of scene sequence later on. I lost it. There it is. I went too far. There it is. Yeah, so you can use the scene numbers to sort of again map out what sequence that your scenes are happening in. An example I use for that is when you have like something like a transition scene that one can be 0 or 1 or 1 or any number that you can remember easily, so that whenever you're programming and setting up your game, you'd say, oh, scene 0 for transition, then scene whatever for the next scene, just to give it a little finesse when you're switching scenes, because it does get pretty laggy when switching between scenes that have a lot of objects in it. Hence why I had that whole transition bubble in between. Now the big question is, can we cover everything? Not in one meeting, obviously. Everything I showed you and everything that's in that little assets project that I linked in the GitHub, I made a quick tree of everything in it, and it looks like that. And it's like, that's a lot of things to learn about in one go. Now, for those of you that are pretty well familiar with Unity, you'll probably see this and think, oh yeah, this is how it should be. This is everything we know. But to someone who's new to this, it can get really overwhelming. I know I was for sure overwhelming when it first came into like working with Unity. And so making a graph like this kind of shows just how much goes into quote unquote just making a game. Unity and every engine out there, I'm pretty sure, does a lot to hold your hand to set up these objects or to set up these items and everything. So I just kind of want to put it out there and show that, like, when it comes to making a game, if it ever gets complicated, this is why. And now I'll read all the text on the side. Can we cover this in an hour? No. Can we cover it in 10 weeks? Yes, if you keep asking. If you have questions about Unity, if you have questions about making something specific or how something works, we're all here to help. We're all here, and we're all pretty proficient in Unity in some way, so we can help out. And when this asterisk over here is saying at this point everything new is up to you, I really mean it. From the get-go, we could just cover this thing or that thing or this thing or that thing and spend like 30 minutes to an hour each covering each thing, and covering that in every workshop with only like 13 weeks, well, 10 weeks at this point, 9 weeks at this point, it is not really feasible. So at least know the basics of how to use either Unity or Godot or any engine that you're using by sort of matching the terms that I've covered over here. So like game objects, your scenes / levels / nodes if you're using Godot. Sort of come into any YouTube video or any like forum that's covering how to make a specific feature, knowing how to use Unity already, so that you don't spend time, oh, how do I learn how to make a guy move? Well, I have to learn physics. I have to learn coding the movement. I have to learn this. I have to learn that. Like, sort of familiarize yourself with the basics of any game engine, and learning anything new would come easily. We have a lot of people here that can vouch for that. Don't hesitate to ask for help. Like, genuinely, we all have these meetings like every Thursday, but like anyone that wants like a question or has a question or ever needs help in making something, feel free to hit up the Discord in general or in questions. I don't know if we have a questions channel. He's checking if we have a questions channel. Cool. And a questions channel, anywhere. Just even, I'm saying it right now, you could DM me if you want. Like, you can DM me and ask me for questions. I know Jake has some pretty interesting questions that I spent like hours talking to him about, and it would be like how we program stuff generally, or how I program stuff generally. Like, I love answering these questions in terms of like making something and optimizing something, not just in Well, mostly for games, yeah. So that being said, I know there's a lot to cover, and instead of fitting everything into 2 hours every Thursday for the next 10 Thursdays, um, just look into something and ask us, hey, how can we do this? Or I have this idea, how can we do this? We're all out here to help. And for the asset project, that is going to evolve over time. It's like, you'll see in a second, it's very, very, very rudimentary. Only has like 3 prefabs, but you can do a lot with 3 prefabs. And then as time goes on, I'll put in more because my professor from LBCC did give us a large code base to make prefabs out of. So keep in touch if you want to check those out. We'll post stuff about it too in the channel. Next week, big stuff, tentative big stuff that I'm going to talk about for Unity. So like general coding and scripting layout and practices, managers on how to, or managers for, I'm losing my words here, managers for controlling how the game works, or covering save data, or scene management. Like I showed, you can go in like different directions with which scenes you're going next to or going in sequence to. Custom features like collision boxes, raycasts, and stuff. Those may seem basic, but we do also have to code all the stuff for that. I know it took me a hot minute to figure out how a raycast works to make like a little detection area. That was pretty cool. Animation, I tried it once, and I was successful, and I really didn't like it, but we'll cover it. If you ever wondered what it looked like, quick, really bad example that I did. I just hard coded every frame. It's not a good idea, but it was like, hey, I need to get this project done. You're raising your hand. What's up, Kieran? Oh my god, no! Animation is not something I ever want to touch, but that's what tech artists are about, right? So, last thing I heard here. Last thing I heard, it's a lucrative market to be a tech artist in game development right now. Yeah. Yeah. Market's dying. Oh my god. Anyway, yeah, buttons, UI, canvas, all that stuff. We'll cover it next week, and that is the end of. Uh-oh. That is the end of this workshop. All right. Now, before I move on to the second one, which I promise is very short, does anyone have any questions so far? All right, we'll move on to the second workshop. Oh, what's up, man? You have any questions?
You're early for second workshop. You got any questions? No? Perfect.
I hope.
Oh, yeah. You do?
What about like the runtime fee controversy?
Wait, the what?
The runtime fee controversy.
Oh, from
Oh,
2023 for Unity. Oh, I can answer that one. Yeah, they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, but like, isn't like that side that they thought about doing it in the first place?
I mean, yeah. But like, Unity's, they don't have it as a policy right now, so there's no current reason to use Xpaper.
Unity's Unity, they make mistakes.
A lot of people, like a crap ton of people moved over from Unity to Godot exactly because of that controversy. That's why Godot is like kind of popping off right now. But
yeah,
a lot of people also like, they're like, okay, well, let's just hope Unity doesn't do it again. So they just kind of stick to Unity because
yeah,
a lot of their expertise already lies there.
yeah. I will say regarding that conversation, bottom line, if you're learning and you do want to get into the field for the game industry, it is useful to learn Unity because in some sense it is a professional standard. But that whole thing they were doing with like the runtime and stuff, it is pretty shady to keep relying on them or relying your business on them in the long term. If you make it big.
So
What's up?
hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe consider switching engines.
Yeah, that's exactly. He said everything I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so.
All right, who wants to drop this lore?
I got it.
I'm gonna let my voice rest.
So guys, as a Unity historian,
Wait, can you take this?
Oh, thank you. Does this work? Oh, it's for them. Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, and the camera. Oh, my shirt. Oh, it's for the Discord. Okay.
Your resident Unity historian.
All right, guys. So in like 2023, Unity made a policy change where it was saying that like they wanted to make more profit because Unity is a free engine for most of the people that use it. They do have a paid version, which I think is for when you make $100,000 or more on your game, you need to give them like a certain percent of all profits above $100,000, which like fair. And most engines do that. Like, well, Godot doesn't because Godot is totally open source, but like Unreal Engine, the other big competitor, that one has the same thing. The thing was that they were wanting to make more money, and so they decided to make a thing where after a certain amount of play hours, it was like maybe 10,000 hours or something on the Unity free, any game created with Unity free version, regardless if it's sold for any amount of money, you would have to owe Unity royalties. So they would start charging you for the play. Like they would start charging you per download of any game you created, so long as the downloads like exceeded some crazy high number. But still, that was like a bit scary because then suddenly, like they were wanting to retroactively, were they trying to like retro?
I think it was retroactive, and it also
Yeah,
It also applied to pirated games.
retroactive and applies to it applied to piracy. That's crazy.
Yeah, like whenever you ran the execution, like the runtime execution.
So they would like be tracking, I guess, like anytime someone ran the program, they would like have a thing that tracked it on the Unity cloud system. But so the problem there is like, okay, let's say I personally with my amazing game dev skills, I release a game that gets 1 million downloads, but it's for free, so no one's paying a dime for it. Unity would see that. They would see 1 million downloads on a product created using the Unity engine, and they would go to me and they would charge me thousands of dollars for royalties. So, when they announced that, it didn't go over too well, and Unity kind of it's been kind of shunned ever since then. They never implemented the change to my knowledge. In fact, like currently it's totally scrapped.
They did it to big companies.
They did it to big companies?
Yeah.
Is that scrapped though now? Because like it currently is scrapped, right?
I mean, this is in 2023.
Yeah, so
Last
like
I read is that they kind of reeled back and was like, okay,
yeah,
we're not doing the
so like
big one.
there was an extreme amount of backlash and they took it back. But like the problem now comes with Unity is that you see that it is a publicly traded company and therefore it wants a bunch of profits all the time. And so I believe it's publicly traded anyway. Either that or they're just greedy. But so there's a concern that anyone who makes like an indie game or anything that's starting to make money with Unity, they're at the whim of Unity deciding that they want to still be nice and they don't want to change their payment policy again. Because if they do, then suddenly it gets really bad for the indie devs who aren't making too much profit off of their game. So the concern is like if you're relying on your Unity game as your main source of income, maybe consider making your next game in a different engine. But as we are learning here, right, Unity is really cool to learn in. It's really powerful, and it's like it teaches you how to code in the C#, which C# is great because you can then bring that to C++, all the other languages in the C family. And so like it's a great point to start off with. Maybe not the best idea to make your $10,000 budget game in Unity.
If you're making it big, don't do Unity. That's pretty much it.
Any question?
So a good way to summarize this is if you want to go faster, code in Unity and get lucky that someone will buy your game or install your game.
I mean, like, yeah, you can still make your game in Unity and sell it for money. You'll be fine.
No, like if you're doing it for free though, like if you want to make yourself go bigger faster.
Oh no, like they're not going to like it's just a kind of slight chance where it's like if you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars off of a Unity game, the Unity lawyers might want to cut.
Yeah. My question is, how do they track pirated games?
Well, it's in the so all Unity games, right? They're compiled using Unity, and then they can include anything. Unity, the corporation, can include anything they want inside your executable, including a thing that say like tracks, like it sends a little token to like the Unity cloud anytime it's opened. so they would be able to track any download of your game.
So that means that if for all my pirated games, they already know I did it.
Assuming that they had at the time a little token that told them that you opened the game.
I see that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if there's a game dev that I just hate, can I just create a program that just opens the game?
Oh, that was a concern too, because literally.
Also, one thing to keep in mind as well is there's a lot of game. I think actually Kieran, but like there's a lot of game engines and also like Steam as well. Like always like takes cuts for like a certain amount of sales or whatever. So like Epic Games, like after $1 million, it's 5%. I'm pretty sure Steam is
15%, or is it 30? It's 30, isn't it?
Steam is 35%.
Yeah, 35%. Yeah.
35% for each sale.
Mm-hmm.
So if you plan to like have any sort of cash money income, just keep that in mind.
Okay, but then you get to say you have a game on Steam, which is really a big flex. So like it evens out. All right. Any more questions about the lore of Unity?
I don't remember if this is what the Pokemon look like.
What is that supposed to be?
I don't know.
Are you trying to draw a Wooper?
I think it's Wooper. Does he have?
He has a second one. Yeah, he has a second one. It's an axolotl. Yeah, you just give him the second one. Yeah. Okay, you're good. Now it's a Wooper.
This is supposed to be insane.
So, what engine did a lot of people start when this controversy happened? A lot of people.
Godot.
Oh, they say that, but also Unreal Engine. Like Unreal Engine got a big spike.
What other operating systems
Game makers.
Game Maker.
But okay, so there's a massive fault.
Hello.
When Karen,
Hello.
when Karen started talking, it was coming through. So it cut
Okay,
off.
wait. So it cut off in the middle, but that's okay. That's okay. I switched off. I switched off. All right. So we're starting the second workshop now. This is project management, and this is not really about Unity. It's more so the process to making a game or running a team to make a game. And for those of you that ever do game jams or anything like that, I'd want to say take a listen on this because this is something that I've built up some experience on in terms of what I did right and what I could have done differently in terms of making a game, a pretty sizable game, in a very short amount of time. And I want to preface this with everything I talk about here very much so is applicable to game jams and also probably helps with the short amount of time it takes to make a game. And also, it's just software engineering. So, ooh. So, I will be straight up. This is a quote from Marty O'Donnell. You know, 3 things are important to making a game: not dying, shipping, and making money in that order. I resonate with that. And also, I have to mention half of this workshop I didn't even make. The vice president from last semester made this. I was the other half of this. So there's a lot of stuff I'm going to cover, but I got to kind of gloss over it because those were mainly her parts that she talked about. And it's been like a semester. I don't genuinely remember other than whatever context is on the screen. That being said, we're going to cover what is leadership. So, why did you just salute me? Why did you salute to me? Anyway, real quick show of hands. How many of you are working in teams or groups? Just Jake and Sam? Teams or groups, multiple people. If your project is a multiple.
Yeah, no, I know, but like you guys already have those.
One-to-many association. Sorry.
Huh?
Sorry.
One-to-many association.
Yeah,
That's 326. Okay. Well, for those of you ever thinking about going to join a team for a game jam or a project, hackathon, anything, if you are ever leading the team, it's a really good trait to be responsible with everything, right? I know it's like that's obvious. It's very easy and it should be done, but it's true. In the worst of times, at the end of the day, when you have all these people working under you, working with you, whatever the dynamic is, if you're bringing people together to make a product of any kind, the responsibility kind of all goes to you, to the person who's sort of leading the charge. You can have several different people in your team do different things, and if they didn't perform well, yada yada, like that sucks. Honestly, it does. But at the end of the day, to get everyone to work together to the best of their ability, you do have to be responsible in terms of being on top of things and getting them to all. Oh, I thought it was someone else. Oh, hey, welcome to the meeting. Yeah, you do have to be responsible in terms of leading your team. Be very responsible. Yes. Cool little asterisk here. You will run into problems, and I agree with this statement that past vice president said. Yeah, that's okay. If you have problems in your team, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. But if you keep your responsibility and you know what to stay on top of, then theoretically you should be good. You know, like take accountability when you have to. I think the next other slides are about accountability. Oh, I skipped it. Responsibility. There it is. Yeah. The screen's broken. I gotta read it here. So when things do go wrong, you need to own it as your mistake, not your team's, especially publicly. So when you're working in a team setting and everything goes wrong, you can't be like, oh, we failed because this one guy couldn't do this guy couldn't do that. That's just not cool. Like at the end of the day, we're all friends, or we're all people that agreed to be in the team, right? So when you make your mistakes, at the end of the day, it will help the team immensely if you take accountability for your actions in both good and bad. Like accidentally deleted a whole folder or something, hey, I did that, sorry, that's okay, let's see what backups we have. Instead of, I deleted it, but that's because you said this, and then so you said that, you said this. Like, it takes up more time to have conflict trying to figure something out instead of, taking accountability for the things you do. Trying to think of like a personal example of that, but I don't. But I guess the generalized answer for that is if you're working in something under some sort of deadline, this applies to game jams, hackathons, and even in like actual jobs where you're having deadlines to submit your part of a project. Um, anything that you don't take accountability for, that you like argue over or sort of like shift blame to, it does take time. Like feelings aside, it does take time to resolve who did what happened, and all that. So at the end of the day, the whole project suffers if you can't learn to take accountability for your actions. And the second line too, I really like it. Just be honest with yourself and your own limits. Like, know what. Why is he doing that? All right. You do have to be. You do. Why was he outside? When he comes back, I'm about to make him take accountability for that. Just made me look away from the screen for a bit, made me lose my flow. Anyway, I take responsibility for getting distracted. So you got to be honest with your limits, and I really mean that. And even in my case too, I had like a midterm, and I had to make this workshop and this other workshop and stuff. You got to know your limits, and you also have to work well within them. Because if you don't, then it costs you a lot of time and a lot of flexibility. Okay, I thought you were looking out the window. It takes you a lot of time and a lot of flexibility to not be accountable for that. Sorry, I didn't end that well because why were you outside? Why were you outside?
Don't worry about
All right. Cool. In a team, you got to be connected. You gotta be able to connect with your team members. Like not just see them as, oh, this guy does this guy does that, so do this, do that. Like you gotta vibe with them. You gotta be able to work with them pretty well. I know Jomar was just doing like some art for our last game jam, but he was there like almost every hour. All he was doing was drawing bugs.
Oh yeah.
But it was so like I had so much fun like programming. I was just like singing out loud, programming, and the other artist Huang was for some reason tweaking off a Coca-Cola. I don't know why. And like every now and then we just like talked about which music we liked, and then traded songs, traded games. We played some stuff. Like the vibes were nice when it came to working together. Checking my microphone. The vibes were nice when we were working together, and that's what kind of made the project flow pretty smoothly. Like we were able to connect, and we were able to call on each other when we needed to because we had a good relationship with each other. Oh, and this part about going on outings, play games, whatever. Yeah, you can do that too. I always take it. I always try my best to go out and celebrate after a jam is done because like making a whole thing and releasing it in like a short amount of time is a big feat. I would say like it's a big success. You should go celebrate that. So I will always opt for celebrating something like that. Yes, question.
I just want to add to that point. I found that working with the team is great to meet like maybe at least once a week, just each other and see face to face. Hey, what are your plans for the game right now? What is your intentions? What are you able to do? It helps keep the team kind of together and focused.
Yeah, I agree. So the microphone couldn't pick that up, but I'll say it again. It's always good to at least meet up in regular intervals when you're working together so that you guys can keep up, see each other face to face, or hear each other and talk about what you need. Did I cover everything? Did I say everything? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, just meet up in person if you can, or as much as you can when working on something together. Or if you're like me, this past weekend I did a hackathon. I was on Discord calls with them almost all day and night till 6 in the morning, and then wake up at 11, programming in Discord until 6 in the morning again. You have to set a limit at some point, though. Just being honest about that. Solving disputes. So, I got a big one about this for my game jam for my game jam from like a year ago. When you got too many people on the team, but this can happen in any number of people in a team. When you got too many people on a team, there are going to be problems where one, let's say example, I have a lot of examples. One designer wants to make a level this way, but another designer doesn't agree because they made level 1 practically impossible, right? So designer who's proposing says, this is my level, this is level 1. Should be a good way to get used to the jumping mechanics and stuff. Designer 2 is just like, well, no, we can't because it's too hard. Justin literally played it and he couldn't get past it. And then designer 1 says, well, Justin should just get good, and anyone playing this level should just get good. And I was like, should I get good? It was a genuine question for a second. I don't play a lot of platformers. Talking to other designers and having other people play it showed that no, level 1 was just that hard. And so it didn't really follow our flow of like teach, test, challenge in terms of like new mechanics, right? So we had a dispute over that, right? And it took a good amount of communication between the two parties and me to sort of come to a compromise. And that is the goal that I'm here to talk about, is finding a compromise between two conflicting parties, right? When someone wants one thing in one way, but another person wants it a different way, which is inevitable to happen in any project or anything that you ever work on with other people. You should do your best to sort of meet everyone face to face. I'm going to scroll back to here, right? You hit up your responsibility and then take your accountability for whatever you got, right? And sort of put everything on a level ground and be like, hey, I like the work you're doing, but it's too hard in the beginning. The level's too hard in the beginning. We need to change something up, right? Because I don't agree with this, but you're also not agreeing with making it any easier. So common ground, how about we keep this level, move it a little later, right? Because through concrete evidence of us giving it to other people and showing that the game was not able to be finished by that first level, there's a clear conclusion that we should probably either make this level simpler or move it somewhere else where it's more appropriate, right? TLDR, he said yes. So, woo. Nice golf claps. Appreciate it, guys. But solving disputes and like it's like generally as a skill, both as a participant and as a project manager or a leader, like this is a really hard skill to get used to. Like I'm probably not even the best at it. I try my best, but I'm just like I try. But it is really important to get this down, especially when you work with new people. What's the next slide, just in case? I think I answered this question already. But anyway, I forgot my point for that. But solving disputes is important. It's really helpful for helping. It's really helpful for, you know, an effective team. I'm losing my points on this. I've been on the slide too long. Yeah, how does this tie into game management? Well, game management or project management is leadership. You know, you organize meetings, you lead discussions. Like Kieran said, you meet up like once a week with your team, and then you collaborate between your different disciplines. Every team has its different parts, every different functions. I'll show it in a second. But do know there are multiple factors or multiple components to a team. And here's a step-by-step. You guys come up with an idea, you make a team and choose your roles. This is a guideline. It's not really like rules on how to do it. At the end of the day, it's all the same. You need to make an idea, you need to make your team, and then, you know, I don't know about the game design document. You could You can make one. I recommend you make one in a medium that you guys are all comfortable with. But at the end of the day, if you're making something small on a piece of paper on a notepad, you know what the game is about. Write it down. Deadlines are important, but if we're talking about in the scope of game jams, think of it more as like milestones. By like, hey, the first 12 hours we get the idea. The next 12 hours we get the prototype. The next 12 hours we get some refinement. The next 12 hours we get the whole game. Sort of like break it down into that. And this crazy word right here is agile development. Oh, I'll tell you about that in a second. That's my favorite part. I think this is a moot point. Everyone here likes making games, right? Right? No?
Not really.
Co-president says he doesn't like making games. Big shock. Big whoop. Trying to remember. I wrote this like 6 months ago. I don't remember what I put on here. Brainstorming. There's a lot of text on the screen, but I do like talking about brainstorming. When it comes to making ideas with your team, first off, don't be like me and get like 6 to 10 people teams. It's very hard to single out or to arrive to a single idea with that many people. Start with 4 or 5. Yeah, it's nice. But for brainstorming, it can get pretty hard, especially with like a very, how do you say it, like ambiguous. Is that the word? Ambitious. Overly ambitious. No, okay. Let's say like a theme just says like rocks. What if your theme was like rocks, right? And you have like several people being like, yeah, I want to make like a rock band type game. I want to make a rock climbing game. And someone in the back is just like, I want to make a rock. It's like the only thing you see is a rock. You can click on it, but that's it. But like that's a rock, and that's like the whole game, right? So brainstorming is fun and it's important. There's a lot of different things you could do. I only have like one example for this one, and it's this big ass like screenshot. Sorry for my cursing. This is big ass screenshot. This is how I got everyone to like settle on the same idea. You familiar with this, Sam? You remember this? Yeah, this isn't ours, but it's we follow the same thing. Like when it comes to how I work with people and how I find out ideas with them, credit to the guy who told me about this idea. But we just made up this thing, or he just made up this thing where we do like everyone gives 3 sticky notes with an idea, and then we all make votes on it. We make blind votes, and we choose the best ones. This isn't even what we made. But yeah, this is how we chose to brainstorm. So keep it light, keep it fun, and most importantly, make sure you're getting everyone's input. You need to make everyone feel included. I'm gonna take water. Does anyone have any lore to drop while I drink water?
When you say, okay, but it's off topic, but when you say,
No. You can actually. Yeah, come on up. Come on up.
not really more, but pick when you were saying about when you're working with a team.
Mhm.
How does this apply if you work at Bungie?
We're gonna Bungie.
No, say you work at Bungie. Say,
Didn't that guy just like lay off everybody?
exactly, that's the
Like,
point. That's the point. Yeah.
All right, so answer that question. Don't work at Bungie.
Okay, but how does it work if you work at, I don't know, Ubisoft?
At Ubisoft, oh man, that's another one.
Exactly. Even better.
That is even better. Yeah, that's honestly, I don't know what they have in the like. They got something in the water up there. I don't know. I don't know. Like they're just really not on top of managing their stuff. All right, let's hear it. Come on, man, don't say that. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna put it out here. I'm a big Bethesda fanboy, but I can understand they mess up sometimes.
They messed up Starfield.
They did mess up Starfield, dude. That's $100 I'm never getting back.
Exactly. I feel you. I'm a fan as well. I'm just saying, Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be bad. I'm just saying.
Thank you. No, that was an actual sense. But yeah, like, I really hope Elder Scrolls 6 is good.
I mean, think of it like this. It's been 14 14 years since the game came out, and they teased the game 7 years ago with a teaser trailer in 2018 for a game that's not even like early development, probably early development now. But
All right, so here's the plan. Everyone in this room, we're all making Elder Scrolls 6 together. It's just like a platformer that's called Elder Scrolls 6. And then we'll get sued by Bethesda for it.
we'll just do a scat the game. We'll just get it out before then.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
We have a question from Discord. What about Activision?
That's
which one? Activision Blizzard or Activision?
dude, all of
Let me
them.
ask him.
Yeah.
Both, bro. At both. Which Activision?
That's the grandfather of them all. Well, Blizzard or both is the question.
You probably get touched. I don't know.
Okay, here, I got a better thing. Not let your company be bought by Microsoft. If you want to be a successful game developer, do not be bought by Microsoft. Facts.
All right, he says, do not be bought by Microsoft.
What happened
I agree. Minecraft.
What if Microsoft gives you an offer?
Kieran says something. What's up, Kieran?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say.
Microsoft offers you millions of dollars for your game. I think you take it.
Of course, dude, millions of dollars, yes. But I need to have a backup. I need to go do something else so that my baby is no longer my baby.
Yeah, don't choose the $1 million. Choose the 1 cent for
That was the original question.
Nah, man. I wouldn't choose a million. I'd choose dinner with Jay-Z.
I got three questions. At one point, because one was off topic. Do not be a CEO, and do not promise that oh you're gonna like the next WoW expansion. Don't promise that you don't want to see remastered. You don't want to see classic. You just don't. You like vanilla, but you don't want to get it. Sorry, I don't.
No, you're good. You're good. I appreciate the input. I appreciate the input.
Because I was like, okay, so you kind of covered EA, Ubisoft, and Bethesda.
Yeah. So, being a good leader for that, that's like $1 million job right there.
Well, I mean, if you want it, for example, there's last one. If you want to be a good CEO, you can just take after the one that is at the point. You know why? Because you just let your team manager sink the ship, and you still have your temper cars in your garage.
Yep. Yep. All right. Moving on. All right. So as I mentioned before, choosing a team and forming a team and choosing roles. Roles are really important. So, how many of us do everything in our game? Just like be honest. Like raise your hands. Everything. Like I mean everything. Art, programming, the level, everything. Right? It gets pretty tiring, right? Is that a yes or a no? Someone here say no. I'm gonna be really surprised. I'm gonna give you the mic instead. Come here. Take the mic. Come on. Mr. I can do everything. Come here. Take it. So, how are you making Elder Scrolls 6? By yourself.
One day at a time.
Thank you. All right. Let me get the roles stuff out, and then I'll take questions after that. But yes, roles are important, right? There's a reason why whenever we're like looking at, if you guys do this, whenever you guys are looking at jobs for like any type of like software development or making games or anything, there's usually a lot of positions for art, tech art, accounting and everything, but there's not really much for programming, which is how it is today. I didn't mean to segue into that. My bad. I've been thinking about that too much. The reason why we have roles is that, of course, when making anything, any kind of product, and making it well or efficiently, there are a lot of moving parts to it, right? There's gameplay, which is its own thing. Gameplay programming, that's its own thing. Sound, that's its own thing. Levels, everything, that's all its own thing. And to have one person do at least two is already more work than I personally think anyone should take on in a team setting. Yes, there's special cases like if you're like 2 or 3 people working on the game, and all like at least 2 of the members have 2 different skill sets that they can apply. Yes, that's applicable. But at the end of the day, when you're working on something, you do have to have specific roles to cover these specific areas for making your game. Um, that's where it says there in the quote, do one thing and one thing well. Because games are software too, and in an aspect of software development is you all take the parts that you're good at and you collaborate to make the best of what you can make. Hence those 3 points down there. Things will get done faster, they'll look and work way better, and we all learn more when we're all doing that. Ah, jump scare. So, this was a very rough sketch of how I sort of brought myself through the process of like divvying up the work in a team. As you can see up here, well, my screen's blocked out over here. When you guys are making the idea, you just brainstorm and make your idea up here, and cool, we all got an idea. When we actually start, everyone's got buckets and skill sets that they specialize in, right? So I would say at the end of the day, for whatever skill set someone has, whatever they want to actually work on, put them on that, right? I've had designers who said they wanted to code just for the sake of wanting to code, and I said, okay, if you can do it, you can do it. I'll put you in there. But I will pair you up with someone that already has some experience so that you can learn to program. That's in a setting where you want. What are you pointing at me for?
Your manager who wanted to code the last game that not giving code.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for pointing at me, I guess. But yeah, when it comes to like working with people in teams, especially in game jams, um, there are people with certain skill sets that they do best in, and I would say naturally they fit in that role. But if they ever want to veer out to a different role to learn something new, that's completely okay too. Like it's completely okay to broaden your horizons and try things out. Um, for the sake that if this one guy wants to work on art, we'd be looking at him for art, right? So that way, when we're working on something and we need art, the person who's working on art isn't doing something else particularly. That wasn't a clear example. Say, the example I have is I had someone who was mainly wanted to design stuff, but he mainly designed stuff, but he wanted to code. And I was like, okay, you want to learn how to code? Go learn how to code. And so he spent his time learning how to code in the project. Cool. And then when he goes on to make new games, he's got both skill sets, designing and coding in some sense. But in some case, you have to be kind of real with the team members that you have if they want to work on something else. Like if they want to work on what they genuinely want to work on in the team, I would rather. Oh, it's really bright outside. I would rather say, don't force them into a role that you need, but rather you got to find a compromise there. Let someone work in what they want to do so they can work to the best of their ability and find some sort of compromise for what kind of buckets you're missing or what kind of like roles you're missing. Hence, 2 to 3 to 4 person teams where people do several things. Anyway, you guys like my graph? The little yellow boxes are people talking to each other. So, level design happens between the level designer and the concept artist, and then the gameplay designer talks to the level designer and the people making the programming or the framework, and then, you can ask me more about this later. I love talking about this stuff. But there's big graph. What's next? I don't remember what's next. Oh, communication tools. You guys know Discord, Slack, Microsoft Teams, Kick. Everyone still uses Kick. I wouldn't recommend using Kick. But yeah, just have something to talk to each other on. Email each other if you want. I don't know. I did that once. It was pretty painful. Satisfactory.
That's great.
Yeah. Good morning, Jay. This morning I put down the new conveyor belts for our iron mining system.
I know.
And then immediately go on Discord. Hey man, check my email. It was fun for a bit, but it was a hard bit to keep up. Anyway, I highly recommend when you're starting any project, not just running a team, but like when you're starting any project, you use one of these or any progress tracking tool you can find. Anything with a task tracker, a bug tracker, these these sectioned out boards. They're usually called Kanban boards, and they usually have to do, doing, done, or backlog or whatever. Yes, he's pointing at this. This is a work cameo. I made that, by the way. Our professors were like, "Oh, we got to make it in Teams. No external tools." I was like, "All right, bug tracking software in Microsoft Teams." It's kind of painful. I made so much documentation for that. Anyway, I'm gonna go through these really quick. Jira, paid. You know how to do that. You can sit nicely in a game industry job or any software industry job or any development job in general, because that's what they use to track bugs and tasks. Um, so like, oh, I got to do this. Here's all the information, and then attach it or assign it to someone that does that, and then they have it. Jira is the professional standard, but we don't got it like that. So next, Trello, also by the same company that made Jira. Trello is free with a little asterisk that at some point when you make too many boards, you got to pay. Notion, I don't recommend it. It's very nice, but when you have a lot of people in a team, they start charging you by how many of these you have, these little blocks, right? Like I had a 3-person team once, and we made a group Notion board together, and after about 50 blocks, so think of like 50 of these, they're like, all right, free trial is up. Paid 10 per person to keep that up. So if you're going personal, if you're going solo work, Notion's a really good one. But beyond that, teamwork is a little hard there. Miro, free for 3 boards, right? Miro is kind of like it's a collaborative whiteboard. You can place anything in there. A lot of tools for it. I'll show off a little bit in a second or in a little bit. Microsoft To Do, that's that one over there. It's a task tracker. It's a Microsoft's version of a task tracker. And then GitHub projects, that was already in this slide. I've never actually seen that, but apparently it's free. So check that one out. And then working example is our game jam, or me and Matt's game jam with I'm sorry, Fleming. With Matt, Cherry, and 5 other people who aren't here. Oh, how could I forget? Jake, our beloved QA tester for this project. Everyone give it up for Jake. He was carrying the team like hardcore. Yeah. All right. So that's what a working example of a task tracker looks like. We just have all the different buckets for our different roles, and then everything that's done all the way over there. Out of sight, out of mind. I don't understand what this or this is. Care to explain that?
Which one?
Mr. Matt McConaughey?
Which part?
The pictures.
Oh, that was me trolling.
Yeah. No, my slide is broken. No. There it is. Why did it come in out of order? All right, so it's time to introduce agile development. So this is something that you will learn or could learn in a software intro to software engineering class. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because literally this is what saves development cycles and development times. Clear throat. What does it mean? All right, it means fast and adaptive. That's what agile means. Pretty cool, right? How is it done? Through sprints. And what do? We talk about it. We talk about what we're going to do first and be like, all right, we have this task, do this, do that, do this, do that. And then we spend some incremental amount of time doing that. And then we meet back, regroup, and do it again and again and again. And you can develop features like this step by step. You already see the picture. You can develop your features step by step and eventually get to something really well made. So, for example, we all get together and work on how the walking works, and then we work on the running. And then we get into a meeting, we talk about how the jumping works, and eventually you'll get to Fortnite. Like it's a joke, but at the same time, at the end of the day, like you could make anything you wanted just by like incrementally planning things and getting them done. It's also just more stable, in my opinion. It's like if you have a week to do one thing and make it really well, all good. And the next week you do another thing, you make it really well. At the end of the day, your project's going to be like really well made. And I made some graphs over here too. I love making graphs. Um, this one looks kind of weird, so I'll just say it out. Um, After everyone talks in this first big meeting, sorry, I should probably reel back and say how Agile even works. Agile is everyone gets together and they talk about what they're going to have to do, and then once everyone has their tasks, they move on. And as you keep repeating, each of the meetings will get shorter because one, you know how to talk to each other. Two, a lot of the important stuff is out of the way. Three, it's all just making cool stuff after that, right? So for all your tasks, these are all the states that they could be in, right? We have all these tasks we want to do. They're all in progress. Cool. If there's something you can't do, it goes to blocked because something else is stopping it, and they just put it in the backlog for next week. If you finish it, you finish it. Cool. And this is sort of the process to just getting tasks done over and over and over. So how this helps in a game jam, I'll put it on the next slide. How this works in a game jam is I have these anecdotal examples, right? Um, some companies that used Agile to finish their games are Obsidian and Square Enix, specifically for Final Fantasy 14. And Kieran's Shoots and Ladders game. Bet the sprints in that were crazy. One ladder per week. But the reason why I like talking about this is because now it's my time for lore drop. If I can remember correctly, this was made in 18 months and this was made in 12 months, right? Now, these are two really good games. Fallout New Vegas, really good. Knights of the Old Republic 2, the best in my opinion, out of the 2.5 that exist. I'm not counting. I don't want to count the MMO, but it's out there. The history of Obsidian's first couple games is kind of weird because I'm sure you know Fallout 3 exists, and the engine for that is made by Bethesda. And I'm sure you know Knights of the Old Republic 1 exists, and it was made by BioWare. So, very briefly, Obsidian's situations where they were approached by the respective companies and was like, hey, here's our engine, here's our IP, make a really good sequel to our game, and you get X amount of time, right? Like, I think the first Knights of the Republic and the first Fallout 3, they took like a good couple of years to make their engines, but then Obsidian just has like a year or a little over a year to do the same thing and make it better. Which, if you've ever played New Vegas, they have done a lot better, like whole new crafting system and several DLC and everything. And the way that they got it done quickly, I did watch videos on this. The way that they got everything done quickly was through everything I said beforehand. Everyone had their everyone had their tasks, and they met up in these big meetings. I hope, and then they have smaller meetings for each of their respective fields, and they just do their tasks. Once they're done, they say what's been done, what broke, what what can or can't I fix, and what are we going to tackle for next week. Um, I vouch for Agile in the sense that these guys did it. They used Agile and they followed this process of like meetup, task, meetup, task, meetup, task, and got what most people think is impossible to do done in like that amount of time. So I'm gonna give you guys one more look. Game jam wise, this is the golden ticket. This is what I use to run my jams, and we had a planned 15 levels for our game, and then using Agile, I got them to make at most 7, but the 7th one broke. So half of what they expected. Honestly, 15 levels in like Cherry, do you remember how many hours we had?
96.
We had 96 hours, and the designers were like, 15 levels! And I'm like, it's not happening. But I'll give you 6. And if we follow this process right, 7. Stop! Don't say that. Don't say. I know what I said. I know what I just said. I know what I. Anyway, moving on. Moving on. Now, moving on. I can't believe you just perked up with that. Okay, now I know it's kind of running long, so I'll wrap this up in a bit. But I do want to talk about Final Fantasy 14 in the sense that I don't play it. They are the best worst example of using agile, right? So imagine this company with all these people working on basically remaking this entire MMO that several millions of people play. And you got to do it while no one notices that the game is ever really down, right? And guess what? They had 12 months to rebuild the whole game. Awful, because Square Enix CEOs were like, we need that now. We want the new game now. We want the new everything now. World of Warcraft is beating us, and I don't have enough money to buy my new cars. We need it now. That's probably not what they said, but it's close to it. I saw you saying something. Anyway, the reason why they are the best bad example is because they did follow Agile too much, to the point where every week, when it came to reporting what you did, you also had to report. They also had to report how many minutes it took. Like their time schedule for remaking this entire MMO was so tight that the person who was managing everything was like, report me your amount of minutes that you spent on your task, so that for your next task I can give you a specific amount of time to work on it. So I worked on it 50 minutes. All right, cool. And you get like 40 minutes on the next one. That sort of thing. So like over and over and over, they did get it done. They did the impossible and re-released a whole MMO in a year. And from an interview that I watched for, I forgot what his name was, but whoever knows the uh, director for Final Fantasy 14, he was like, "Yeah, don't do that. We got it in the bag, we finished it, but don't do that." No one was happy after that. Genuinely, I want some tools. Um, I'm just gonna gloss over this. I'm sure you guys got your tools, but nothing beats the old Google Docs, right? Question?
What about using stone tablets and chiseling in them? Yeah, Justin. There we go.
Thanks for the head up. I appreciate. I'm cracking under pressure. Guys, I'm gonna be real. I'm on 2 hours of sleep right now, and I took a midterm this morning. So I hope you're having fun listening to me like waddle around and talk. Kieran, you got something to say?
So what game were the Ten Commandments made for?
I don't know. Oregon Trail. All right. I do want to show off Miro. That's like an honorable mention that I want to show out there. But I'll release these slides so you guys can take a look at it anytime. And for everything I would ever put up here, I will always try to make sure that it's available on the Discord so that you can come back to it anytime. Oh, this whole section on crunch. Yeah. Life happens. There's so many things that can happen. The only things you can avoid. Oh no, my bad. The only things that you can't avoid are bugs and life issues, right? But through everything I talked about in this whole workshop, I'm losing my words here, it should covering all of these individually, right? Like time management, less conflict, Work on your own time management. Be responsible and accountable. Cool. Improper planning. Responsible. Cool. Bloated scope. Honestly, when you're all taking ideas from everyone, know when to land the plane. Know when to be like, hey, thanks for your 3 sticky notes. No need for a 4th or a 5th. Just land the plane when you got it. Many other things. Everything here. There are many factors that can cause crunch time, and they are all avoidable. Because no one likes having to do their homework 5 minutes before it's due. But at some point, when life hits you, it's inevitable. So that whole red section, we are in control. The green section, no, it happens, and it's very understandable. There. I don't know. Past president had something to say about that. I genuinely don't remember what it was. It's probably what I just said, though.
That's a pointer. That's what it is.
Oh, my bad. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So, and now, finally, I'm going to take some questions, and then, where's my bag? I'm going to take some questions, and then we're going to do a small activity. Put mayonnaise on the table. We have a small activity where I give out prizes for whoever can finish Jomar's game. It's better, I promise. Come on, give him some more credit. I told him work on it, and he did. Literally in class, I look to my right, and we're like reviewing some stuff for like our midterm. Just look to the right. He's working on the level. Jomar, my hardest worker. Question.
I'm just saying, if you don't make a game, then you don't have to worry about crunch time.
All right.
Yeah, Justin, why didn't you think of that?
President? New president?
Maybe.
You got all the ideas?
Why would he be president? He's not gonna make a game. He doesn't even worry about crunch. He doesn't make a game.
True. All right, we're getting too deep into this. Any more questions on anything?
Before we move on, guys, give Justin a round of applause. Great presentation.
Yeah. Thank you. And now I must reveal.
Whoa.
No.